Cool.
So have we started already, or are we gonna start?
I mean, I don't know. We'll just call it started.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you're 15, did you say?
I'm 15. Yeah.
All right. Well, and how do you how'd you get started in the hobby?
So a lot of people started with the starter set, and I kind of did, but my uncle's a contractor, and he came across this guy he was doing a job for, and he had this piece of plywood with some cork road bed and some track on it. And my parents had told my grandfather, who's the contractor, that they were looking for something. So my grandfather asked the guy, he's like, "Oh, how much for it?" He said, "Free." So I got that for Christmas, and my parents thought that it would just be for maybe 6 months and then I'd age out of it and they'd sell it. And
Right.
here we are 8 years later, and I'm still on the same table. It's just a lot nicer now.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I had an email from a couple of guys, John Caravelli, I think his name was, and they're both in their early 20s, like 22, 23.
Mm-hmm.
And I was excited to hear that they're listening to the podcast because, like you said, don't want just old grumpy guys listening to
Yeah.
it.
Because then it would be just like the forums. We need everybody in here.
Yeah, exactly. Like do you think this is a great question? Now tell me if I'm taking over, because if I am, you ask me whatever question you want and I'll stop asking you questions. But I think it's really cool that you contacted me, and I'm really excited to talk to you because it's fun talking to somebody younger.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you.
Um, we don't want to always be talking to Kelly because he's just an old guy.
Gotta try something different every once in a while.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, and if I don't mention Kelly and everything, he gets pretty upset. So,
Mm-hmm. Rightfully so. I mean, he needs to be recognized.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So my question was going to be, well, I'm really fascinated with, and you probably heard me talk about it. I'm really excited about the fact that for guys your age and girls and guys your age, when I was 15, like my dad, took me to local club, and then he kind of got involved. So there was a couple of clubs we could be involved in and stuff, but you couldn't really connect with other people.
Uh-huh.
But nowadays, do you find it easy to find guys your age or people around your age?
To be honest, I know in my age, there's a friend I have in college,
Right.
and we keep in touch a lot, but that's pretty much it.
Okay. But do you
Yeah.
find it easy to be involved in the hobby because of social media?
Absolutely. All the grown people, they're so accepting and they don't even question it. Like it's very respect all around.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's
Yeah,
cool. And then you can meet people all over the world doing this.
absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Especially with Zoom now.
I know, eh?
Mhm.
Everything is so cool. Everything is so cool.
So, what did you do before the podcast?
Uh, what what did I do? How? Like exactly?
Like in the hobby.
Oh, in the hobby? Well, uh,
Obviously, you modeled, but I mean,
yeah. Well, I started out just like you. Like I started out. My dad uh, bought trains for Christmas. Brought me trains for Christmas one year. Old scale. 027 was called back then.
mhm.
And I ran those for a while. And then he set up like a. So that's like O gauge. So then he
Yeah.
set up a 4x8 table. And then pretty quickly he turned that 4x8 table into an L shape, two pieces of 4x8
Uh-huh.
plywood. And I used to run those trains, man, over and over. I used to run them forever.
Wow.
And then he said, when we couldn't find a lot of extra stuff in O scale back then he introduced me to HO, and I actually so I'm from just north of Toronto.
Uh-huh.
And there was a very famous train store in Toronto called George's Trains that started in 63, 64. But my dad heard of him, and I went to visit George with my dad before he moved to George's Trains in his house. So I
Okay.
remember seeing a train go around the layout. And then, so I was in the hobby, and my dad was in it. We all through that. And then, of course, I did the cars and girls thing for a while. And then after I got married, I got back into it. And when I got back into it, it was just when Atlas introduced their first Atlas Cato Drive locomotive, an RS3.
Mm-hmm.
And it ran so good, I thought I died and got in heaven. It was like it ran so good. This Atlas Cato Drive RS3 ran so good.
Good to get rid of pancake motors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I started, we were in an apartment and I built a little layout there. And then we moved to a house and I built the layout there. The next layout I built in our first house, I actually hand screwed it together.
Okay.
It was a layout about probably 16 by 14 feet. And I hand screwed all the bench work together.
Wow. You have like a little vise that you used, or was it really just
literally hand screwed the whole thing together?
Mm.
And then we moved again, and I forget what tools I used, and that was again probably about 14 by 16.
Okay.
And so I built, started another layout, and on that layout, I sent a picture to Model Railroader for trackside photos.
Mm-hmm.
And Andy Sparandio, who is I don't think he was the editor then. Russ Larson was the editor. Sent me a rejection letter saying, thanks for sending in this photo, but there's not enough action. And I remember staring at this letter for a week thinking, action? It's a still photo. How can there be action in a still photo?
Mm-hmm.
And then I wrote back to him and he explained, well, put some people in it, put some trains, put some stuff, try to create a scene. I went, okay. So then I did that. And then we moved again into this where I'm living now. And I built this house. So I actually built one end of the basement.
Okay.
A 20 by 30 foot area. I actually put in steel beams and everything so there'd be no columns. And I built the room with dividers and everything. And I built the room specifically for the layout.
That thing wasn't hand screwed, was it?
No. So so that's a good part of the story. So by then, it was right around then that I discovered these, power drills and stuff, DeWalt drills that had a power pack on them and everything. And I remember I was building the wall, I was putting the walls together and I bought this thing and it was like a 3-inch screw and it went zzz, and I'm like, oh my goodness gracious. So I built that layout. And then in February of 94, so then I decided I wanted to be a model railroader.
Mm-hmm.
I would, the best part of being in model railroader, being on the cover of Model Railroaders. So I submitted a story and they took it. And from there, I ended up writing another feature article for them. Then they asked me if I'd be interested because I was pretty good at photography.
Mm-hmm.
So then they'd ask me if I'd be interested in doing photo, like layout stories about other layouts. So I did one in Erie, Pennsylvania, and then I did the Pittsburgh Model Railroad Club in Gibsonia.
Oh, you were right by here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I did that and a couple other things, and then they talked me into doing a project layout, which was really hard because it's really hard to build models on a schedule.
Exactly.
Right. So you're like
the way always.
Yeah, like it's one thing to build them for yourself whenever you feel like it, but being given a schedule and a deadline is a lot harder building a layout. So then I did that. Then I did it, and then I gave them an idea for a column called "Working on the Railroad," which was in the late '90s. It started, and I did that for 8 years. Then I became a contributing editor. Then I kind of took a little bit of a break for a few years. Still had the layout and everything. And then I was on a podcast. My friend Bruce Wilson, Bruce the Moderately Agitated Mailboy, he talked me onto being a podcast with a fellow named Tom Barbley, Model Rail Radio. And I went on there and I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Then I got on there and I enjoyed listening to the sound of my own voice. And then I started the podcast because I thought, I'm going to try a podcast. So, back in the 1960s and the early 70s, there was a guy named Jim Finley who used to write an article in Model Railroader called Letters from Jim.
Yeah.
And it was all about this guy who was in the service in South Korea. It was all about what it was like to build a model railroad layout in South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't just about building the layout. It was about what it was like to live in South Korea and try to build a layout and get the supplies and all the craziness that went with that. And they were just really entertaining. So one day when I was on the model rail radio, there was a guy on there named Terry Terrence who was
Mm-hmm.
talking about some electrical thing. And he says, and I said, well, how did you design that? Tom Barbley is very good about letting everybody speak up. So I said, well, how did you manage to figure that out? And he goes, well, I was one of the guys that designed the cockpit for Black Hawk helicopters. And I'm like, whoa, let's back that bus up a couple of stops. So then I got the idea of let's have a podcast about model railroading, but about the people.
Mm-hmm.
It's as much about you as it is about model railroading, because really, when you think about it, that's the most fun is all the people you meet along the way.
Absolutely. There's too many people that just make podcasts about ditch lights now.
Yeah, exactly. And you gotta, like it's interesting to find out about people and where they live and how they get started. And like what grade are you in?
I'm a sophomore in high school.
Okay. Now, what do you plan on doing after high school?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, that's a good plan.
Yeah. Where life takes me.
So what?
God take the wheel.
What things do you like to model?
I'm always transition era, and I'm very non-committal. I'm like the one Pennsylvania Railroad area modeler who doesn't have any Pennsylvania locomotives. I mean, I keep saying that I'm not a Union Pacific guy, and yet I have like 3 Union Pacific engines. I'm not as focused as I should be. So.
Right. Okay. And how did you end up deciding to model the transition era?
I just wanted both steam and diesel. So.
Okay.
You gotta.
Yeah, I think
there's all there.
Yeah, there's a lot of young guys that are interested in, and girls, and that are interested in steam and diesel. Like I was never that interested in steam. I was always like the mid 60s kind of guy, just after transition era. But there's a lot of people that are interested in that era of the steam, including the steam as well as diesel.
That's what you hear a lot of people, like on your podcast. When I forget how long ago this was, but I remember Jason Shron talking about how, if he's listening, just let him know that I want to interview him too.
I'll get working on that. I'll make that a priority.
Oh God, actually?
I will for sure. If you really want to get Jason Shron, I'll get you Jason. I will work on Jason, but you also want to talk to Jordan Smith, who walks. Those guys will want to talk to you.
Okay. Honestly, thank you so much.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Okay, but he's saying that the market for steam is dying out, and I feel like it is in the generation above the young generation, right. But I feel like the young generation has an interest in steam, like
okay,
a lot more than people realize.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. So like you're saying, the generation, the 30s and 40 guys, that kind of generation up there is not as interested as the younger people like yourself. That makes a lot of sense because our guy George the Wonder Boy, who he's 27, 20. I think he said 28. George, I don't exactly remember. A FedEx driver guy, but he's really interested in steam.
Because the young generation grew up with the tourist railroads that ran the steam engines. So all of us just got fascinated with that.
I love that. That's a great analogy. The young generation grew up with the tourist railroads that run steam engines. I love that. That's a great analogy. Mm-hmm. Holy mackerel, you're going to have to be on the podcast again.
I'm ready. So can I ask one more question specific to you?
All right.
What do you do to choose guests? Is it like I do where I'm like, hey, that'll be fun. Let's just do that. Or is it a bit more organized?
Organization isn't really my thing.
I get that.
Yeah, but it's kind of like a lot of it lately is people that write in and you're going, oh, okay, so this person took the time out to write in. So then I try to investigate everybody that writes in, and there's a list of people, to talk to from that. That's how I ended up talking to Dave Abelies because he wrote in, and Nick Santo from Nick's Trains, he wrote in. So we ended up, those are just ones and there's a couple other fellas now I'm on our last viewer mail that I want to talk to. So that's one way, because if somebody's excited enough to write in to the show, well, then you're like, okay, well, and then check Serge LaBelle. That's a great interview that's coming up in about a month and a half.
Uh-huh.
He's a fellow that lives way out in Quebec, just almost towards the end of the St. Lawrence River. And he's a locomotive engineer for the Quebec North Shore and Labrador.
Okay.
And he's building this huge O-scale, beautiful O-scale layout, which is really neat. So he's another one that I got through him contacting me. And so that's one way. And the other way is, like just kind of people I know, but then I will talk to one person and I'll go, he'll tell me about somebody else. And then, somebody else will tell me about somebody else. So it's more about what I'm interested in.
Okay.
Like it was, so, like I'm thinking, I got to get down, because Jason Shron's factory or offices aren't that far from me. So I thought, I got to get down there and talk to him, or Tim Morris, who owns Fast Tracks. He only lives a couple hours from me. So, I talked to him.
Mm-hmm.
But then let's see who's on my list right now. I got a list of.
I completely wouldn't expect it to be like this. In my head, I always thought like you had some like master plan about how you just chose people, but nope. Just what do I want to do?
Yeah, and you're looking for enthusiastic people.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've done how many interviews have you done so far?
4.
4, okay.
3.5, because I tried to talk to Harrison from SMT Trains, and he was quarantining in the countryside, so his Wi-Fi was really bad, and he kept freezing up. So.
All right. Well, we gotta hook you up with Jason Shron.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
I will help you, and and anybody else you think you want to talk to, I'll help you get hooked up with him, because it's really fun to have a young guy like you doing this. I'll help you as much as I can.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
That would be a great interview. You talking to Jason Shron. I'm definitely working on that. I'll start working on that tomorrow.
Zooming it out. So.
Yeah. I was just trying to think who else could. Well, hey, Scott Thornton from Proto Throttle.
Oh, yeah.
He'd love to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of people that would like to talk to you. Kaylee Zhang, you've heard her on our podcast. Yeah. Pretty much anybody that's been on our podcast that's a regular would love to talk to you. Kevin Marks and Mike Ostertag, who's a locomotive engineer, and everybody would probably you'd be able to get them on, and plus lots of other people. I'll help you out there.
Okay, thank you.
How often do you do this? Like, how often have you got some sort of a schedule, or?
So I do this under my club's name,
right?
On YouTube. And to be honest, I kind of just do this when I feel like it. Like I really spend maybe a couple hours on this each week.
Right.
And I did a couple interviews to start out, and I'm like, I just want to see how they get accepted before I do more. And everybody was kind of like, hey, this is something cool. I liked it. And I'm like, well, that's all the positive feedback I need. So
yeah. No, I'll help you as much as I can. That'd be fun. Because you know what? You're doing exactly what you have to do to either do a podcast or a YouTube interview. You're speaking up. Your audio is good. And you're enthusiastic. You got those 3 things, you're off to the races.
Honestly, this is my computer microphone, so
it's a good microphone.
Thank you.
And you must have good internet and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you're speaking up, though. See, you're speaking up and you're speaking clearly, which makes a big difference.
It's gonna help me out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna do well in life, young man. I can tell that already.
Thanks.
So okay, so you're modeling transition era.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking. So do you feel like you're a Union Pacific guy, or do you feel like just buying that for now, or?
Yeah, that's what I feel like. Everything. I just love the look of like the West Coast stuff, and I'm like, oh, I'll just buy this and I'll run it sometimes.
Right.
But then over half of my fleet is stuff that doesn't belong in Pennsylvania territory. So we'll see what's happening.
And how many people are in this club?
I'm gonna give you an answer, and then somebody's going to email me and be like, well, actually, um, it's probably around 20, 25 guys.
Okay.
Hmm.
And is there a permanent layout?
Yeah, we have, there's a business park, and we have, I wouldn't call it an attic, but there's a spiral staircase to get to it. We have rent of $1 a year,
Oh,
and we get a huge space. It's double decker, all of it against the walls, and there's a back room with a huge helix.
and what's the club called again?
The Northern Delaware Model Railroad Club.
Okay. Oh yeah, man, you guys are a going concern here.
Yeah.
Look at that. Holy mackerel. Do you know how old the club is?
It's definitely since like 2000. So I think it's a little over 20 years that the
Wow.
layout's been progressing.
Cool. And you do operating sessions?
So the layout, and again, there's probably guys who are going to email me like, you should have said this, you should have said this. But
Well, you know what? We'll tell those guys that you'll be on again, and then you can say what you're
yeah, I can
supposed to say.
correct everything I said. We're just going to have to talk a second time.
Yeah.
So the layout kind of, after 20 years, a lot of things happen in just nature. So things get weathered, things get worn. So a lot of the track work needed work, and there were a lot of new members who came in. Everybody helped.
Sure. Yeah.
There was a lot of new talent that came in and helped. So all the wiring is pretty much redone, and we had our first operating sessions last winter, and we were really going at it until coronavirus.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And how much does it cost to belong to the club?
Like $100 a year, give or
All
take.
right. I'm doing this for my podcast now because I'm going to put this on somewhere. So
Okay.
the actual website is Nordel, Nordel, model RR.
.org. Yep.
.org. And you know why it's .org, eh?
Organization.
Yeah, because you're organized.
Oh, look at that.
That originally came from our buddy Shane the Young Gun Mason.
Okay.
Oh, you know another guy it would be cool for you to interview would be Tony Cook, the editor of Model Railroad News.
I don't think I could.
Why not?
That's what I was hesitant to reach out to Jason Shron and to people like that because I just feel like they're super huge. Like they're the biggest people. I don't know. I just didn't.
No, Tony Cook, you would really enjoy talking to him. And another guy that would be fun to talk to for you would be the editor of RMC, Railroad Model Craftsman, Otto Vondrack. I'm going to help you. You tell me when I'll help you get some people on here so you can have some fun.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, you're a fine young man, so I'm enjoying this quite a bit.
Me too.
Got any more questions for me?
A few. Okay.
Okay, go. Shoot.
Has there ever been an interview that you thought was going to be great, and then as soon as you started talking to the person, you're like, this just isn't going to go well?
Yes, there has been a couple of those. I don't think I should say the names because
no names, but
yes, there was one or two fellas, probably three or four over the time where you're going, oh man, this is going to be great talking to this fella. And one fella in particular, it's very informative, but his answers are really short.
Oh.
And so it's like, so you're constantly, like a lot of people have conversations like you and I are doing right now. Mm-hmm. Most people are like that, but there's three or four people where they're waiting for the questions, and then you ask them the question, then they'll give you like a minute long answer or 30-second answer. Then you got to move on to the next question, and you pretty quickly are running out of questions.
I know. I always have a list for backup, but I can imagine the stress when somebody just gives you these straightforward answers and you run out of questions.
Yeah, exactly. And I try to
episode.
Yeah, and I try to if you can get somebody talking about something, like
forever,
Yeah, exactly. Like just asking you when you model, and then you go, well, transition, but I like Union Pacific, and then you can get a conversation going about that, and you just keep going and going,
Mm-hmm.
Next.
Yeah. So what's the best interview you've ever done?
The best interview, I think most people would agree, Well, the one of the interviews I really enjoyed was a guy that just recently, David Hyde, who is the lead horn for the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. He was he met me in Springfield,
Hmm.
and he was very accommodating, and he spoke up, and he had a really interesting story because he works at the Dallas Symphony Orchestra as a
Yeah.
musician, and also he's an avid model railroader.
Hmm.
And Dave Abelies is really interesting. Joe D'Amato,
Shron.
yeah. Jason Shron, I think, has been the most popular interview I've ever done. And I was really excited about that because I did that with my portable recorder.
Hmm.
And I had the chance to buy a couple of really high quality handheld mics that were on sale. So
Uh-huh.
I thought the sound of that and the audio quality was
It was
spectacular.
great. Yeah.
And he was very forthcoming. So yeah, Jason Tron was great, and all our Rapido people were.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, there's been a lot of
Yeah, that was a
people.
great episode.
It was a great
Yeah.
episode. It really was. Next.
Next, so obviously Zoom's kind of been a blessing, but how has COVID affected the podcast? How everything that you're doing?
Um, Let me see. How has COVID affected the podcast? I would have to say,
New.
well, I guess the one way it's affected the podcast is we couldn't have our barbecue, our AML barbecue. I
Yeah.
can't get out and easily interview people like I
Hmm.
could before, which is, so there's always the interviews that I do from here, from the studio,
Yeah.
but I always was able to, go out and interview this fella or that person, or I'd go to, an RPM meet and there'd be, a couple of days worth of interviews there. So I kind of miss out on that. And the first incident of that was the Northeast RPM meet, NERPM, excuse me. Um, that was the May 31st. So I missed out on that. So that would have been a ton of interviews there.
Hmm.
So, and so and then after that would have been the AML barbecue. Uh, and we missed out on that. So we didn't get to do any interviews there. So that's where I find you know, there's none of that stuff to mix in with the regular stuff. So yeah, I'd say that was the biggest thing that's been the problem that I'm disappointed in, like
Yeah.
everybody else, but it is what it is.
Do you know how to extend a Zoom meeting? So you've developed like relationships with all these companies, like Rapido, obviously, Iowa Scaled Engineering. There was Prototype Model Works. I probably got that name wrong, but it was something like that. Um, where do you see these? Where do you see these relationships going? That's probably a very odd question with like
No,
not a very specific answer, but
that's a pretty good question. I like that question because I do see these relationships going somewhere because the thing I like the most is there's been podcasts that came ahead of me for sure, but I think my podcast has kind of hit a sweet spot, and so I'm having a lot of fun dealing with the manufacturers. And what I see happening is as time goes along is they're gonna get more and more relaxed with and like having me come around. Not that they didn't, but they're gonna be more relaxed. Like I noticed with Jason Schron, that was his second interview,
yeah,
and he was much more relaxed the second time than the first time, and I thought he was very forthcoming, which made a great interview.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
so I see the relationship being that they're going to be glad that they're going to be happy that I say, hey, let's do another interview. Like they're going to be anxious to be on the podcast
Okay.
to help get their word out, their message out.
Yeah, I can't wait for a company to announce a product on the podcast. It's gonna happen one day.
That's why you're gonna have to interview Tony Cook of Model Railroad News because he knows tons of stuff. Another good guy is Rob Arsenault from weathermytrains.com. He's excited. There's
Okay.
a ton of people for you to interview.
Before we leave, so there's always this outro that we do on the interviews. And so it started with John and Batacola, and I want to make it a tradition. You hold up your thumbs up so it's just out of the frame, so they don't know what finger it is. No, you hold it so it's out of the frame. No,
Yeah.
so it's just oh, I'm looking at it the different camera. So you hold your thumb up, so it's just You put your fist below, so it just looks like your finger.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I got it. I
And
got
then
it.
right before anything happens, you pull it up. It's not the middle finger.
Oh, I get you. All
Okay.
right.
Uh-huh.
All right.
3, 2, 1. It's not the middle finger. That's so awkward, but I want to get that to,
Yeah, I get that. I like
I don't
that.
know.
And the more you do it, the more people see it, the more they'll know what you want. Yeah, I like that.
It's